Jeff Meacham Network's Multiverse of Media. For over 15 years, the recognized symbol of excellence and the standard bearer in coverage of sports and entertainment.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of For the Love of Wrestling. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. Happy Friday, everyone. It's good to see you guys tuning in and joining me here for my TNA Impact review for the day. Second one, as of course last week, I was unable to do it due to illness, but we're back in the saddle here today. And let us get right into things. The show kicked off with Nick Nemeth, formerly known as Dolph Ziggler, versus Trey Miguel of the Rascals. Fast-paced contest here, with Nemeth showing that he hasn't lost a step, considering how little WWE has really used him in the last few years. Zachary Wentz got ejected from the match, and Nemeth was able to get the victory here. Post-match, Steve Maclin came out and attacks Nemeth. Wentz also comes out, allowing a bit of a triple team onto Nemeth. Maclin hits the KIA before the three men leave the ring. Backstage, the Design go to cut a promo, and Diener says it's time to rebuild, restructure, kind of like change, but Khan isn't hearing any of it. Khan says the Design is dead because he says it is, and it's time for him to show and remind the world exactly who he is. We then see Steve Maclin and the Rascals walking through the backstage area. They encounter Speedball Mike Bailey. Wentz gets a little bit of froggy and seems like he wants a match with Bailey. Hopefully we'll get some more of that interaction in the next week, as I believe they usually film 2 impacts at once. So maybe this will set up something we'll see next week. We then had Decay versus Savannah Thorne and Mila Moore. MK Ultra were shown watching the match from backstage on a monitor. This was pretty much a squash match here, as Rosemary and Havoc just destroyed their opponents. Post-match, MK Ultra are interviewed, and they want a rematch at No Surrender against the Decay. Jody Threat and Danny Luna come in, and Jody Threat ends up challenging Masha Slamovich to a match later on in the evening. We get a debut segment called the Sound Check, and Alan Angels, formerly of the Dark Order, who of course came back to Impact, I want to say middle or sometime last year. He's hosting the segment called Sound Check. And his special guest on the debut episode is Josh Alexander. Alan Angels accuses Alexander of stepping on people in order to get to the top. Excuse me, sorry. But the Walking Weapon disputes that, saying that he's worked for everything that he's had. Alan goes on to further imply that Josh has ignored someone that helped him get to where he is, which everyone's pretty much assuming he's alluding to himself here, and causes Josh Alexander to walk out of the interview segment. This was a fun, interesting segment. I'm curious to see what exactly happens on the sound check going forward. If this is going to be some kind of shtick where Alan Angels ends up causing people to walk out, but we will see. Datilla is in the chat room. One of my TNA knowledgeable people says Wentz has already had a match with Bailey. He alluded to it. So I still feel like they're probably going to set up something more. I did watch your review on bodyslam.net. It feels like they may be setting up a little bit more with that. Okay, that's what it was. He brought up his son Jet. I heard him mention Jet, but I had no idea who it was, and I don't think he said his son, so must have missed that part. Either that or they weren't clear enough. They need to be more clear. But it's good to see you in the chat room, Datilla. I appreciate that. We then had Brian Myers versus Kevin Knight, and this was a decent match. The most professional wrestler, Brian Myers, did a good job making Kevin Knight look good, but he still picked up the victory thanks to the roster cutter. Post-match, Myers' fellow system mates, Eddie and Alicia Edwards, get into the ring. They were down there at ringside with him, and they begin to surround Knight, which brings out Kushida. We then get a Chris Sabin interview, and Sabin gets erupted by a Mustafa Ali vignette, making it seem like Ali is coming for Sabin. This should be really good because Sabin is just a phenomenal worker. Mustafa Ali is so underrated. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens when these two meet. We then had Jason Hotch and Jason Hotch and John Schuyler come in, and a match is made for next week between Sabin and Schuyler. That should be interesting. Hotch and Schuyler, to me, kind of look like Hank and Tank from my NXT. That's the kind of vibe I'm getting from them. I don't know a whole lot about them. This is the first time I'm seeing them. I'm going to have to see the way their characters are presented in ring. But Hotch and Schuyler kind of reminded me of Hank and Tank from my NXT. Datilla says Kevin Knight is a star on the rise. I can agree with that. Brian Myers, like I said, made him look amazing. Trust the system. I do not trust any system. I told you that in a private chat. We will have to see if I eventually begin to trust this system. But if I'm being honest, everything I have seen of Moose in the past, I have not been impressed by Moose. I don't know what it is, but there's something about him that just doesn't click for me. And since he's the leader of this crew, it probably means I'm not going to end up trusting the system. Darren G agrees. Good to see you, Darren. We then had a Frankie Kazarian in-ring promo, and he kind of goes on to say that he came back to TNA a year ago. He's given the fans more than they can imagine. Now he's going to take what he wants because he deserves it. He's tired of being a decent person, a decent man in indecent times. He's tired of being overlooked and tired of being a hero when people just love to see the hero fail. And I thought that was a great line because, you think about our heroes in the past, and whether it's wrestling or comic books, like as big as John Cena was, everybody would boo John Cena. They wanted to see him fail because eventually they had enough. So I thought that comment was kind of interesting and wanting to see the hero fail. We now have permission to hate him, and I'm just gonna say that I seriously doubt there's anything Frankie Kazarian's gonna do that's gonna make me hate him. I've been supporting the guy for 21 years. Don't think I'm gonna change that anytime soon. Datilla says it's bad enough you don't believe in Joe Hendry, but now you don't trust the system. I'm disappointed. Get used to it, sweetheart. Speaking of the system celebrates in the hallway, and Alex Shelley crashes the celebration, telling Moose that he's demanding his rematch for No Surrender. I understand Shali gets his automatic rematch. Don't know if it's good for him to go for it right here because we all know Moose isn't going to lose it back that quickly. Absolutely, Daniel. Harvey Dent said it best. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. We then had a vignette for Dimeless Dana Brooke. I'm joking. Ash by Elegance vignette. You know, I know I'm clowning her in her Timeless Tony Storm-esque presentation, just minus the black and white. But I am curious to see what she's going to do once she gets in the ring. But until then, nobody can dispute me that the presentation isn't capitalizing on the Timeless Tony presentation. She very much feels like a knockoff. She very much feels like a clone. That's why until I see her do something that makes me change my tune, she will continue to be referred to as Dimeless Dana Brooke by me. And Darren G is cracking up at that. We then had Diener cut an in-ring promo, and he announces to the crowd that the design is in fact dead. He talks about how he picked up the pieces of Violent by Design and thought he could rebuild it and rebrand it, repurpose it into something better and different, and he wasn't successful. And now it's dead, and it doesn't matter if it's a person or a faction. Once something's dead, it can never rise again. And here comes PCO, the French Canadian Frankenstein. I loved this. I will never get tired of seeing PCO rolled out on the table, the slab, getting the shocks so that he can rise like the universal monster that he is. Such a great presentation for Pierre Carl Ouellet, PCO. And this ends up turning into a squash match. Diener just gets murdered by PCO. And as if that's not bad enough, post-match, Khan comes out, attacks PCO, then goes after Diener, snaps his neck before turning his attention back to PCO. Khan, of course, formerly of the Ascension. So, going to be kind of cool to see what he does here. I saw a little bit of the Ascension over in WWE, but I haven't really seen Khan on his own. I'm going to be curious to see what he does here. Very much looking forward to seeing him develop, assuming TNA keeps my interest past No Surrender. Still got a tall order right there. Before I start believing in Joe Hendry, before I start trusting the system to Tilla, first TNA's got to keep me past No Surrender. We then had AJ Francis, the former Top Dollar, backstage, and he's trying to get Rich Swann to kind of run with him. And I found this funny because I've made the joke on a few of my shows here, my reviews, where I've said that Rich Swann looks like the Wish version of Swerve Strickland. Swerve Strickland was a member of Hit Row, arguably the leader with Top Dollar. So the fact that AJ Francis is trying to get the Wish version of Swerve Strickland to run with him in TNA, I just find hysterical. Maybe I'm on my own here, but I feel like Rich Swann looks like the Wish version of Swerve Strickland. And to put those two together would just be too funny to me. However, Rich Swann at this point doesn't want anything that AJ Francis is selling. He's been feuding with Joe Hendry, who Dattila, of course, believes in, and I, as of yet, do not. And Rich Swann lost to Joe Hendry on Explosion, which I reviewed on Tuesday. I'm not going to be able to put the link up right away, but once the video processes after being live, if you click the link up here, you can go and check out my Explosion review from Tuesday. Rhino then walks by, and AJ asks if Rhino needs help with his Crazy Steve issue, and Rhino tells him to fuck off, which I damn near spit my drink out when he did that. I was cracking up at Rhino. Dattila seems to believe that it's going to lead to a Rich Swann heel turn. We shall see. Darren G, going back to Khan, says that he thought he looked familiar. That would explain why, brother. We then got Jordynne Grace footage of her journey to and her backstage footage at the Royal Rumble. And I thought this was so cool, them being able to use WWE footage and kind of document her journey. We saw Gail Kim watching the Rumble at home, just kind of jumping off her couch and cheering Jordynne Grace on. And I will say, I have been very critical of Jordynne Grace. Not the in-ring performer, but the person. I have watched and heard some of the reviews and some of the reports that came out about her a couple years ago, specifically the ones where she began giving Tony Khan crap for the way he was handling her husband, Jonathan Gresham. And then the interview she gave where she said that Chris Benoit wouldn't be able to hang with today's in-ring performers. And some of the stuff she's said in the past really turned me off to her as a performer because of who the person was. Seeing her in the Rumble and then watching a few of her interviews this past week post-Rumble where she talked about her experience, one of them with Denise Salcedo, and I forget who the other one was with. But I'm slowly starting to change my mind on Jordynne Grace. I'm slowly starting to come around to her as a performer, as a person. She seems, at least in those interviews, she came off as very down to earth and humble about getting that opportunity and experience in the Rumble. All I'm going to say is, Jordynne, don't fuck it up. Because if you start going back to the way you were, you're gonna lose me again. Period. Daniel says more keys to unlock a WWE TNA Forbidden Door / Worlds Collide / Multiverse United. Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I want us on open mic night to do a Worlds Collide / Multiverse United fantasy booking and book TNA versus WWE NXT and see what we can come up with. I don't think that'll be tomorrow's episode as it's too short notice. But if we have another so-so week of news, that may be what we end up doing. So be on the lookout for it. We then had the match between Masha Slamovich and Jody Threat. And Jody may in fact be a threat, but she ain't enough for Masha Slamovich, as she got the win with the snowplow. This was an all right match. Maybe it's because all the other matches were really firing on all cylinders for me. I felt like this was a little bit of a cool down, a letdown. I'm not saying it was bad, but just all the other matches that were on the show so far, as well as the main event, were so fast-paced, high-octane that I felt like this one kind of underperformed in comparison. We then found out that the system has taken out Kushida backstage. So they're definitely running through like gangbusters, trying to destroy everyone that stands in their path. And that brings us to the main event, the Grizzled Young Vets versus ABC, Ace Austin and Chris Bay. Match 1 in a best of 3 series. And match 1, man, was a hard fought bout. Lots of double teaming. Both teams tried to take advantage of the situation when they were getting the opportunity. The fans shitting all over the Grizzled Young Vets, which made their victory even sweeter, in my opinion. Grit Your Teeth gets the win for them. I'm not sure why the fans were crapping all over them, unless they're seeing the Grizzled Young Vets and they're just automatically thinking of the dyad from the schism in my NXT. If that's what they're thinking of looking at these guys, I can understand why they crapped on them some, because the dyad was it was. However, the Grizzled Young Vets are an amazing tag team. I hope they end up coming out of this series the victors, the champions. ABC now has to come from behind and get 2 in a row to win the series. It can be done. It has been done before. But the odds, in theory, look to be in the Grizzled Young Vets' favor going forward. I hope match 3 in this series will be at No Surrender. I'm looking forward, like I said, to seeing what happened here. Main event was solid. All in all, when it comes to my rating for this, and since she's still in the room here, on a scale of 1 to a Sean Spears perfect 10 to Tilla, I think I would give last night's TNA Impact an 8 out of 10. I feel like the design stuff, for the most part, with the exception of the in-ring promo leading to PCO, was kind of unnecessary. I also feel like the AJ Francis Rich Swann thing went a little bit longer than it really needed to. And then, like I said, the women's match, Jody Threat, just kind of felt underwhelming in the grand scheme of things compared to everything else on the card. Darren says, I came back to TNA about a month or 2 ago, doing a good job keeping me around this time so far. I can agree with that. You know, I watched a few TNAs, mainly the live events, the pay-per-views, the special events over the past couple years, when I would have to do commentary alongside Noah, Simple Man Noah Foster, of course. And they weren't so horrible that they made me want to like gouge my eyes out. So that's always a good thing. But much like Datilla says on her show, It's Wrestling Time on Rangers of Wrestling. And the reason that she doesn't watch NXT or review NXT is because that's her one free night where she doesn't have to do anything wrestling. She's admitted that NXT has been good, that it hasn't been horrible, but it takes away from her one free night. It's kind of the way TNA Impact has been with me. It's my one free night each week where I don't have Raw, NXT, Dynamite, Rampage, SmackDown, Collision, a PLE, open mic night. Like Thursday night is my one free night. So they have to really captivate me for me to want to continue watching this and going on to review it every week on a consistent basis. With the job that I do, Friday is traditionally my busiest day out there to make money. So I have to sacrifice 2 hours of work to come back home and then do the show for you guys. So got to weigh the pros and cons here. So if you guys are enjoying watching me do this, watching me review TNA Impact, you guys want me to continue doing TNA Impact, let's see some thumbs up on the video. Let's see it getting shared around social media. Let's see some super chats, super stickers, super thanks, all that kind of stuff. Let me know that you guys are here for this. We're going to take a quick commercial break, as we always do. I'm going to show an updated watch along trailer, show you guys everything that we're going to be covering across the multiverse of media, kicking off with Vengeance Day on Sunday, going through the Bash in Berlin, everything that's been announced for now. And when we come back, we'll get to the shills. Be right back.
And now, preview time. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
And in addition to all of that, we will also be doing a watch along for AEW Dynamite next week, 4:45 Pacific, 7:45 Eastern, as Steen and Darby Allin challenge Ricky Starks and Big Bill for the AEW Tag Team Championship. Just isn't in the video because I haven't re-edited yet until after Vengeance Day. Once I do that, then it'll be in there. But yeah, added that to the watch along schedule. Technically, yesterday, Thursday. After they made the announcement on Wednesday, we just got confirmation from Jeff and Noah. Jeff will be producing. Noah will be doing commentary alongside me, more than likely. So we're looking forward to that. But before that, later on this evening, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern, on the Simple Man's brand and right here on the Casa D18 Studios, simply predicting NXT Vengeance Day. Me, Noah, I believe Chris Rotz, and whoever else decides to show up and join us will be predicting this Sunday's Vengeance Day pay-per-view PLE card. Maybe Datilla will be there for that, since Vengeance Day is her cutoff for NXT. Maybe we can get her on there to give her thoughts about what will be happening on Sunday. And speaking of Sunday, we will be, of course, having the watch along, kicking off at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern, as myself and Noah call the action for NXT Vengeance Day. Of course, we will also be doing coverage of No Surrender, Friday, February 23rd. That should be Noah and Datilla on the call, I believe. I know Datilla has a new work schedule, so she may be coming in a little bit late on that. But regardless, I do believe they are supposed to be on the call for the majority of that program. Make sure you guys tune back in here on Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel, as I give you my thoughts on all the weekend pro wrestling shows, AEW Rampage, AEW Collision, Friday Night SmackDown. And until then, thank you guys for joining me and tuning in, and I will see you guys on Monday.
The Jeff Meacham Network multiverse of media. For over 15 years, the recognized symbol of excellence and the standard bearer in coverage of sports and entertainment.
Thank you, JJ. Appreciate you.